Forsaken World is an MMORPG from Perfect World Entertainment and a spin-off game for the more popular Perfect World International. Forsaken World PC was published in 2011 and will at the end of November 2022 finally shut down its servers. Forsaken World PC should not be confused with Forsaken World Gods and Demons on Steam, which honestly is just auto-playing trash. The game has 7 different races, which cover all the typical fantasy stereotypes, like humans, elves, dwarves, stonemen, werewolves, demons and vampires, and also the different typical classes you could expect in any random MMORPG, like warriors, mages, priests, rangers, assassins, and so on. All classes, however, are race locked in some degree. The race and class choices are overall perfectly decent in this game. The soundtrack might be one of the few highlights of the game. It certainly doesn't come close to compete with the best games in the genre, and loops perhaps a bit too much, but it is overall still quite fitting. Apart from that, most aspects of the game are somewhat okay, but nothing really motivates you to play the game. The game mostly consists of some rather monotonous fetch quests. There's some few different quests, but they're also rather basic. PvE is not terrible, but I didn't experience or heard about anything really worth playing. There's just a lot of averageness here. Character creation is in my opinion also a bit too limited. You might be able to choose between dozens of hair colors, but only have a few different faces to pick. The combat system in Forsaken World is a very static tap target system. I got no problems with tap target combat, but the one here in Forsaken World doesn't feel particularly engaging. Overall, combat is just very average. PvP might potentially be fun, but sadly Forsaken World is extremely pay to win. You could grind for months to get somewhat competitive equipment, but there are also gear refining and reforging functions exclusively in the shop, potions with time limited bonus stats, so that players keep buying them for PvP, and so on. Forsaken World could certainly not be recommended for PvP focused players. The visuals of Forsaken World are also disappointing. For the most part they are decent, even though quite lacking in comparison to other 2011-2012 games like Rift, Guild Wars 2, Star Wars The Old Republic, Terra, Vindictus and so on. Some textures on the ground and some other areas however just look terrible and don't fit the rest of the game. Forsaken World is a fantasy MMORPG in the style of games like WoW or Aeon. Many other smaller MMORPGs like Allods Online or Ruins of Magic also took strong inspiration of these games, but they at least had some unique elements, like the astral ship combat or the multiple class system. If you look at PvE, PvP, the combat system, the visuals, for every aspect there are at least a few dozen MMORPGs that are more worthy of playing. Forsaken World is a mostly average game with some even below average elements and therefore also gets a slightly below average score. I wouldn't recommend playing the game before the server shut down unless you have nostalgic feelings for it, because there are much better alternatives out there. Forsaken World gets a 4.5 out of 10 from me. A longer written version of this review is available on my blog and I'll put a link in the description of the video. In this sense, thanks for watching this video and I hope to see you in the next one.